Good evening, everybody. My name is Graham Smith. I'm the leader of Hico. Still relatively new in the role, and tonight is the second of our virtual bull nights, as we're calling them. And tonight we are very pleased to welcome both Mike Rose and his team from LIC, and also Jim Bruce and his team from Viking Genetics. In a moment, I'm going to outline what we're going to do over the next 60 minutes or thereabouts. I'll also be introducing a couple of the Hico team who are working away in the background and will actually help as the night unfolds. Let me start by just giving you a quick summary as to why we're doing this. The reality is that Hico is looking to improve its engagement with its customers, predominantly farmers, but also industry partners. We believe that a key part of what we do is to actually help facilitate you receiving good information and knowledge. And given the way the technology is unfolding, tonight is something that we're wanting to trial. And in fact, we're doing an initial burst over the next 3 weeks. And later, before we finish tonight, I'll give you an update on what we're doing next week. It's not a silver bullet in itself, but I think if the technology is worked properly, well, then it can, as said a moment ago, it can aid improving our knowledge and understanding. And so, as already indicated, tonight is really a snapshot. And so it gives both LIC and Viking Genetics an opportunity to give you some insights as to how they're viewing the industry, the coming season, and also to talk specifically about some of their products. Beyond tonight, if there's enough interest, we can organise additional sessions with either or both organisations. And because, as said, this is really about helping you make better decisions. Let me just point out that we are recording tonight, and that's so that we can, as we did with our Tuesday night session, we will edit that and put it on YouTube and other social media sites. The other thing I'd just like to say quickly before I hand over to Mike is that online tonight we have farmers, we have industry representatives, we have some Hico staff, and also some board members. And so we have quite a cross section of people, and we also have David Gorst, who is keeping everything going. David's sitting in the background, monitoring the technical aspects of what we're doing tonight. I think he said he's proud to have set up his control room a bit like a nuclear submarine. So that's what David's doing tonight, and so I'm sure the show will go well. So without further ado, that's enough from me at the moment, and it gives me real pleasure to hand over to Mike, who has the floor for the next 30 minutes. So Mike, welcome, and thank you for your time.
Hey, thanks, Graham. Really appreciate that and the introduction, and thank you to Hico for putting on this initiative. Great to be presenting here, and yeah, it's a good way to engage, and people can stay in the comfort of their own living room, having a beer or their dinner or whatever, and yeah, get a little bit of information. So yeah, myself, Mike Rose, I'm the country manager of LIC, been over here for around 5 years. I'm based just north of Melbourne and Gisborne, and get down into Gippsland and Western Districts and all those key areas that Hico's based a fair bit. Just they've also got Mike Waite on the call tonight, so he's based out in our Western Districts area, working with that Colac branch pretty closely. And well, we've got Colleen, who's transitioning across to Hico actually. So yeah, she's moving across, and Hico are going to have the benefit of getting her services to support the technician service and work closely with their customer base. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to working closely with Colleen, and wish her all the best in her new role. So for the Gippsland guys out there, I'll be probably looking after that client base for a little while until we find someone new to take over. So looking forward to that. For tonight, just going to cover off a quick overview of LIC for those who haven't got a great deal of knowledge about what we're all about, a little bit about our breeding philosophy overall. Going to just cover off what's new with LIC for 2021, and then also cover off a couple of the new key bulls. So yeah, so David, are we going to get the presentation up now? Is that the plan of attack? I don't know if you guys can all see me okay. I saw a message pop up saying I can't be seen. It's probably a good thing in a way, but there's no great loss there.
Yeah, no. So David is now bringing up the presentation, and you should be able to see it now, Mike. And I can see you. I can see you clearly. So hopefully.
Oh well, at least someone can.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so we could probably click straight into slide number 2 there, thanks. Yeah, awesome. So what LIC is all about, so we're a farmer-owned co-op owned by about 10,000 dairy farmers in New Zealand, been around for around 100 years there, so yeah, a fair while. So in New Zealand, we've got a pretty big presence, around 3 out of 4 cows in New Zealand are sired by LIC bulls, and really big focus on data quality and as well as quantity. So pretty fortunate, really. We've got a big database, one of the largest dairy databases in the world. Over 5 million dairy cows are feeding into that database. 10 million milk samples analysed each year, all feeding into that system. All the matings, calvings, etc., all go into that one main system. Big focus, once herd sizes have got a lot larger, a big focus has really been on DNA verification. We've now got over 15% of the 5 million cows that are DNA verified. So really trying to reduce that mismothering down and just making sure we know what the parentage is and focusing on that. So it's been a real big uptake from farmers around that. Look, we might be a little bit old school, but we still got the progeny test scheme. We've got the largest progeny test scheme in the world still operating, so we're still testing around 120 bulls in New Zealand. I mean, genomics has come a long way, and it's looking really positive where that's going. In New Zealand, a lot of, around over 50% of the bulls in New Zealand are now sold a genomic, but we still feel there's a lot of benefit in having proven bulls, having a progeny test scheme. It gives us a really good benchmark to compare our genomic size, and it also allows us to test, we don't actually market yearling bulls. We let them run through the sire proving scheme first, so we can get calving difficulties on them. We can get any genomic defects or anything. They can be sort of flagged potentially through the sire proving scheme before they hit the mass market. And look, R&D is a massive, research and development's a massive focus for LIC as well. We're one of the largest researchers in New Zealand dairy, with around 6% of our revenue feeding back into research and develop new products, services, and things like that. Next slide, please. So what makes LIC different? I suppose one thing I'd really like you guys to have think about tonight is just what we do different, and what one of our big focuses is really on trying to match that cow type to the farm system. So everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, I suppose, in the products they sell. And one of the real big focuses for us is that we're focused on breeding a type of cow suited to predominantly grazing-based systems with some extra supplement. So this is a quote that I heard when I first got over here from a pretty well-known consultant, John Mulvaney, and he's often said this: you've got to have the cows to suit your farm system, not the farm system to suit your cows. So I thought that was really appropriate and suitable for what a lot of people need to really try to hone in on, I suppose, and matching that cow to the farm system, because there's nothing worse than trying to change your whole farm system to try to have try to change your overall farm system for your cow. You really need those cows to fit in with the type of farm system you want to have. So when we look at where LIC's trying to breed and some of our big focuses, I think a lot of it is really similar to what a lot of the main Australian dairy industry and focuses, and that's around where do you get the cows get the bulk of their feed? Well, for most Australians, 50% or more would be coming from grazed pasture, and so that's what we're trying to breed for. Our cows have got to go out, find their grass, walk 3 or 4 k's a day to do that, and graze down to 4 or 5 centimetres, and that's a pretty big ask for a lot of cows. And we're requiring them to go out and find their grass and graze it day in, day out. What are you paid for? So we're breeding cows that are paid, that are focused on milk solids production. You know, farmers are primarily in Australia paid for milk solids production. So that's what breeding companies should be focused on, is breeding towards what farmers are paid for. So that's where our focus has been, and our bulls generally have very good components and high milk solids production. So what about fertility? What's your fertility like, and what's your average age of your herd? So, I mean, for a lot of Australian farmers, they're in either spring calving or autumn calving, block calving type systems, or split calving type systems. So, especially in areas of Gippsland and Western districts, it's pretty common to be one bulk calving a year or split calving. And in both of those, you need to have herds and cows that get in calf quickly and can last in the herd. So it's a massive cost getting cows into the herd. So we don't want them to leave too early. I was reading the recent report from John Morton on Australian reproductive performance just the other day, and we've seen the reproductive performance in Australia go from around 56 to 51% 6-week in calf rate over time, and the empty rate's probably sitting at around 21% on average. So, I mean, we can see there that probably 1 in 5 cows are leaving the herd a year just because not getting in calf. So a big focus for the industry is trying to improve that fertility and get that, especially that 6-week in calf rate and empty rate, going in the right direction. So, I mean, it's been a big focus for us for a long time. Fertility, if cows don't get in calf in a seasonal spring calving system, they usually find them way to a McDonald's meat patty or something like that. So over time, you breed out those infertile animals and that. So yeah, it's been a big focus for us. Next slide, please. So we're really looking to breed the cows that dairy farmers want, you know, efficient, highly fertile, long-lasting cows. Efficiency is a big focus for us. We don't want to go and waste a lot of extra feed on maintenance on big cows when we don't need to. We're trying to have a cow that's really going to match that type of production system that we're aiming for. So for the size of cows being quite an important factor in that. So our Holstein Friesians, we're looking to have what we would call a moderate, but probably in a lot of Australian senses, it's actually quite a small Holstein Friesian. So around 550 kilos is where we're trying to aim to have our Holstein Friesians sit. If they're in a bigger production system, they'll probably creep more up to around the 600 kilo mark. Jerseys, we're trying to increase the size of our jerseys and have been doing that in time. And our Kiwi cross, the crossbreds are in between those two. So, you know, around 500 kilos is where the average cow kind of sits in New Zealand. And that's for a lot of farmers, a real good measure is trying to have around 100% of their body weight in milk solids production is quite an aim for a lot of people. So they're trying to really have a high percentage of milk solids per kilo of live weight, and it's quite a good general measure of efficiency. So probably something for the farmers on the session tonight to have a think about. What sort of percentage of live weight per kilo of milk solids are you producing? And with an aim, you know, if you can get close to 100% of your live weight in milk solid production, it's a really good target to try to hit. Easy care, robust cows. I mean, we just want those no-fuss cows that turn up, don't cause a lot of problems, strong feet and legs. They are easy calving and they adapt to the milking routine well. You know, a lot of farms got big numbers of cows these days, and they're also got staff with different levels of experience. It may be backpackers or overseas people coming with not a lot of experience. So we need to have cows, and we're trying to breed cows that are going to adapt to the milking routine very quickly. Strong udders, an overall type, being strong. We need these cows to last in the herd. As milk production's increased over time, we need that to continue to improve. And this here graph just shows a little bit of how our fat and protein breeding values have increased over time, but in the yellow line's live weight. So that's remained pretty pretty static. So it's really just showing that efficiency over time has been getting better. We're basically producing more with the same amount in terms of feed and live weight. So yeah, really good story there. All right, next slide, please. What's new for LIC? So, I mean, sex semen, big topic in the industry now. I mean, our sales have continued to increase like most companies in terms of sex semen, but it's really something that we're working closely with farmers on around planning. It's not a silver bullet by any stretch, but there's certainly a good place for it within the market. And we work really closely with our farmers on trying to plan how to use it, where to use it, and at the end of the day, why they should use it. You know, that's the first question you need to ask yourself with sex semen is, why do I need to use it? And what are you trying to get out of it? So big thing is if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So this tool just allows us to give farmers a bit of a snapshot into what different scenarios might work and what the outputs might be. So just a little snapshot here of 100 cows on a plan. So option 1 is 6 weeks conventional semen. Option 2 is 6 weeks of sex semen. We've got submission rates at about 80%. So the big thing with sex semen, there is a lower conception rate. So trials have kind of shown that between about 10 and 15% below conventional. So we've put this in at 55% for conventional conception rates, 43% for sex. So that's going to give us about an extra 17 calves by using sex semen over those 6 weeks. So 17 extra heifer calves from using sex semen. So there's always a but our 6 week and calf rate is probably going to drop on this scenario around 12%. So there's going to be a bit of a hit in repro performance. And then what about cost? So that's always a bit of a factor as well. So the heifers in that calf pen are probably going to cost around $76 in just the semen cost from the conventional semen. And sex semen, because of the extra costs of the semen and a bit of the lower conception rate, they're going to come in at around $129 for the cost of those heifer calves in the pen, just from the semen cost alone. And then when we look at the repro effect of that, so we take the calculation from the GAP calculator of the in-calf program, we input that into it. So what's those costs and what's the cost of those heifer calves in the pen then? So that's comparing the conventional, so they don't change because that's the benchmark, I suppose. But the sex semen calves increased to around $286 per calf. So that's why it's really important to think about where am I going to might get the best bang for my buck in terms of sex semen. How can I get the best results? You know, making sure farmers are often now targeting cows that are cycling well, early calvers, no animals that have had health issues and those type of things. And a lot of our farmers are using it on yearlings. Yearlings seem to be a really good place to target. Other areas we're focused in conjunction with the sex semen beef options. So we've had a long history around short gestation and focusing on short gestation products. Hereford at Angus, we've got some great products in that lineup with the shorter gestation animals coming in around 10 days gestation length. So that compared to other beef animals, that'll be 5 extra days on the ground. So extra milk in the vat, more time for those animals to recover. So and lastly, hoof print, something that's we've launched this year. So that's really looking at improving the environmental footprint of our cows on farm, and specifically around the methane efficiency and nitrogen efficiency. And you can see there that little logo on the screen. It goes from 0 to 10. So the higher that is, the more efficient they are. And the photo there underneath, we're actually putting all our sire proving bulls through a methane barn. So they're all getting tested for their methane output. They're all getting fed lucerne cubes for, I think it's 100 days they go through this program. And that's in the efforts to be able to establish a methane breeding value. So the environmental impact on farms becoming quite sort of probably the number one thing with New Zealand dairy, how they can reduce that environmental footprint. Some of the regulatory pressures and government pressures is huge. I mean, there's talks of even cow numbers being reduced by 15%, but just could be mandated or required, which I mean is a massive impact on dairy. So a lot of this is around the environmental impact. So if we can start to breed cows that are more environmentally friendly, then that will have some mitigation factors around some of these things coming down the line. All right, next slide, please. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of bulls. I'm not going to bore you with pages and pages and a catalogue of all our best and wonderful new bulls coming off the production line, but just a couple of bulls here that wanted to highlight is Meander Arrow. So the bull there on the left with the lovely white cow dam. Meander April is she's from a large farm in the South Island, Southland. She's actually produced a number of bulls for us before. Wingman was one, and we've got a young bull from that cow that we're marketing as well called Meander Arena from the Gauntlet, which has been a popular bull in Australia. So yeah, really strong bull with good production. Not huge for live weight, but just probably around that 530 kind of kilo kind of size. Farmers really like them in terms of temperament traits, strong udders, just a good all-rounder really. So he's one you can see there. He's one of the highest ranking for the hoof print index. So, and a lot of that is around that efficiency really. Yeah, so one to have a look at. Another one is Vector. So Vector's been around for a number of years in Australia, one of the highest ranking fertility bulls available, and he's probably very high in the New Zealand index for fertility as well, and a bit larger for Holstein Friesian, and a lot of that comes from his capacity. So very strong bull, capacities huge, and so he gets a lot of that from his strength. So you're looking to put strength and fertility into your cows, Vector's a really good option. All right, one more slide, please. That's probably pretty much it. Just wanted to highlight a little promotion we're doing through Hico for sort of to promote the bull nights, and for the next little while, if anybody puts an order in over 50 straws through Hico, there'll be a little LIC hamper that we're happy to give away. So we've got a few goodies in there, 50 pack of LIC scratchies, shed apron, thermos, multi-tools. We've rated the goodie cupboard, and they're all in there. So yeah, any of those bulls you're interested in or any others, get in touch with myself or Mike Waite, or Colleen might even still answer the phone for a while, and we can no doubt help you out, and yeah, we'll go from there. So that's about it from me. Hopefully I haven't run too far over time, but we might have a chance for a question or two.
Mike, thank you. No, you're spot on. So we have up to 10 minutes for questions, and I know Jared's been has been monitoring the chat line. So I'll hand over to Jared instead of me. I could ask a couple of questions, but I won't. I'll hand over to Jared and see what's coming through.
Questions perhaps not as explicit at this stage, so I'd encourage people on the call to type in where they can. We have had some issues there, and there's some actual tips there from David on if you're using the desktop Teams application, that it might just have got to a bit of a critical mass. So perhaps jump out and join via the website link, the website rather than the Teams app, if that might help you. But a question while people get typing, and there's plenty of people typing there, so there's plenty of people who can offer pose a question to you there, Mike, so I'll encourage them to do so. But I'll just ask a question, perhaps from a position of naivety, like the sex semen has been around for a few years now, and is obviously relatively popular. Is it a challenge for you? And I'd ask the same question to the guys from Viking in a few moments' time. Is it a challenge to get people over the line on it? And also, when is it appropriate? Perhaps more importantly, when is it appropriate, and when is it not so appropriate to use? What are sort of the parameters that you'd look for there?
Yeah, I'll go first, I suppose. I suppose it's not a question of really getting them over the line. It's horses for courses, what suits them. I mean, there's certainly with the increased pressures or increased awareness of reducing bobby calves out there, and strong demand for both Holstein Friesian exports and even Jersey and crossbreed exports. Dairy beef's going very strong. There's a strong case for sex semen at the moment. I suppose you know, you want to have a plan of attack. I mean, a lot of people don't need to have excess heifer calves, and so you want to have the best heifer calves you can. So there's a good place to be able to target your better cows, your better genetics with sex semen, and also been able to utilise the beef options to increase the potential revenue stream off that side of it. So it's something that is growing very quickly, and there's challenges around supply matching demand and having enough stock and all those type of things. But I think we're all working with that and trying to do our best we can there. Yeah, I'm keen to hear Viking's take on it.
Anyone from Viking want to have a quick chat? Jim or Eric, do you want to just give us your thoughts on that sex semen, the
Sure,
rollout,
Dave,
the take up, that type of thing?
You want to jump in there, Eric? Just your take on
okay.
the sales front.
I should be on.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear, Eric.
No, well, I think, certainly sex semen's having a huge uptake, particularly in the Jersey breed. And, we're in a situation in Denmark now, within 2 years, there'll be very little conventional semen being made for the Jersey breed. It'll be mainly sexed, which is interesting. Animal welfare is a huge issue. Nobody likes to see calves being killed at a week old. So, it makes sense to put sexed on your herd to get that early flush of heifers. And then with only one chance of breeding, people are getting, they're breeding from the most fertile portion of the herd, the ones that go in calf, of course, and then following up with beef. And then, of course, the beef offspring, well, they get to live a bit longer, 12 or 18 months, and then we kill them and eat them. But I think, sex semen is becoming a very, very big part of the future.
Graham, if you've got a question you want to ask, particularly of Mike, because obviously Eric is just warming up for his presentation in a few moments, but a question particularly of Mike from LIC. Oh, you're on mute there, Graham.
Oh, another dollar in the mute jar,
There's
Graham.
another dollar. Yeah, it's a very easy trap to fall into, particularly at this time of night. But and this is probably a question for both, and it's not about giving away any trade secrets, but given the COVID supply chain issues, do you think that's likely to impact on supply through this season, or was it just too hard to tell at the moment? And maybe that's a question for both Mike and Jim.
Look, I mean, it hasn't really impacted us too much. I mean, all our semen's in the country, and what's here, and the flights and everything have stayed pretty consistent across the Tasman. So we're quite lucky. We're not probably Europe had more of an impact than the States and places like that than we did. But I think, to be fair, Europe had more impact because of Brexit than because of COVID lately. So it wasn't COVID so much that was the impact there. Yeah, I mean, last year early on, there were some challenges when flights just went bang across the board. But I think the last 12 months, people have adjusted and planned a lot more ahead. It's probably more sex semen's probably been the more challenging one, trying to keep up with demand and, making the bulls, getting bulls that not every bull collects as well for sex semen. So having the right bulls and having enough backup bulls and things like that. So those are. But yeah, it hasn't been a massive issue, and getting technicians to put them in the cows probably more of an issue than the semen itself. Yeah.
And Jim, quickly from you, any thoughts?
Yeah, look, similar to Mike, we haven't had any great impact with flights and so forth. We moved early. The challenge is to make sure that you've got sexed product on the right bulls. Sometimes you'll choose sex product on a bull that the demand doesn't exist, and other bulls will sell more quickly. But by and large, we've got good inventories. We're in good shape that way. We have had a few bulls sell out and we've been able to restock in time for the spring. So, no, we're in pretty good shape.
Good, excellent, excellent. We've got time for one more question, and Jared, I think a couple of questions are coming in now.
Yeah. So one just around herd testing. Why do you think herd test participation in Australia is so low? Mike, I'll come to you first, and then Jim, if you want to have a think about that. Mike, what are your thoughts? Particularly given the New Zealand, I believe is it a higher penetration rate in NZ?
Yeah, herd testing's about 75% in New Zealand. Yep, so it's one of the highest.
It's great. It's significantly higher than Australia.
Yeah, significantly higher. I think traditionally, herd testing was part of the framework. I suppose it's been something that's happened for a long time. Herd testing participation probably used to be 85 in New Zealand, so it's actually come down slightly. I think a very well integrated system. 95% of farmers are on the one Minder type software program, so there's a lot of value gained from that. High genetic merit animals are probably worth $400 or $500 more than low genetic merit animals. So I think if there's a tangible difference between high genetic merit animals and low genetic merit in terms of dollar value, there's actually a dollar figure that people can put on it. It does help probably herd testing participation as well. It's just probably not something we see a lot in Australia, is, say high BPI as BPI necessarily, unless it's one or two elite kind of animals, where a lot of the time it's on that breed or a bit of historical breeding, so that might be part of it. Yeah, probably not as in touch with the herd testing side, but there's just a little bit of what I think where some of that comes from.
Thanks, Mike. And Jim, any quick comments?
Yeah, look, very quickly, and I would like to get Eric's view on this, having been an Australian dairy farmer who was herd testing. From a Viking perspective, in the Nordic situation, it's about 90% herd test and really detailed herd test. And we can talk long and we'll talk in a little while about the benefits of that. Yeah. So where has it faded away, Eric? I think most people would suggest that farmers sort of lose faith from time to time and cut the cost and haven't had the catalyst to rejoin herd test. Is it more than that, Eric?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Most farmers just hate it. They hate the setup. It's a hassle. They just detest the herd test day. And I guess, I don't know. I guess at the end of the day, maybe enough just don't feel there's enough value in it for them. At the end of the day, I mean, they're getting milk, fat, protein. If you could value add to it and somehow that you couldn't do without it. I used to love it. I used to love to see the individual cows, because some cows you thought were giving a lot of milk weren't, and vice versa. I think it's important, but a lot of people just see it as a hassle, and yeah, there just needs to be a little bit more value creation around it, I think.
Yep, good answers. And so, look, we're spot on time. So, Mike and Eric, thank you very much for your time tonight. As we said at the very beginning, this is about a snapshot of the industry, facilitating good information and knowledge, and I think you've very much achieved that tonight. And I think for people that tune in over the next 3 weeks, you're going to see a variety of views, and hopefully that will help make you better decisions as we go through spring and beyond. So we can, as said at the very beginning, we can organise additional things with LIC post tonight, and also at the end we'll be putting up our 1800 number, which is 1800 444 266. But Mike and Eric, thank you very much, and we'll without further ado, we'll in fact, I don't really have to introduce Jim, because Jim, as country manager for Viking Genetics, has already whetted the appetite with some commentary already. So, without further ado, I'll hand over to Jim, and as I said earlier, at about the 20-minute mark, if need be, I'll give Jim. I'll just give you a gentle reminder. So, thank you in anticipation of another excellent presentation.
Thanks, Graham, and we'll just get the presentation up here. Now, Super Dave's going to tell me whether that's showing or not.
That's loading up now.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's showing, Jim. It's
Good. So if everybody can see that, we'll bang into it. Thank you very much to the Hico team for hosting the event, and to all of you for giving up some time tonight. And as Graham said, my name's Jim Bruce. I'm the country manager for Viking in Australia. Other team members joining me tonight are our senior breeding advisor, Eric Thompson, you've already heard, and also our Gippsland representative, Sandy Kurtzman, is online. While Viking Genetics has been active in Australia for more than 10 years, we may not be so familiar to some of you. So let me take just a few minutes to tell you a little bit about our business. Viking is based in the Nordic countries of Denmark, Sweden and Finland. We represent a cooperative made up of over 19,000 farmers. The three cooperatives, Viking Denmark, VAXA and Faber, own Viking Genetics and the subsidiary companies in Germany, the UK and Australia. Close to 900,000 purebred cows are bred and recorded within the co-op every year. We export semen to more than 50 countries around the world. We have somewhere approaching 200 employees, and as a cooperative, the profits of our business are channeled back into benefits for farmers, with particular emphasis on innovative R&D, currently focusing on feed efficiency and its effect on dairy emissions. The cornerstone of our program is data. Everything we do is based in science. 90% of all Nordic cows are recorded with amazing detail and accuracy. Everybody involved in the process records all the information in a single database. So that includes farmers, vets, hoof trimmers, AI technicians, classifiers, milk test labs, inline milk monitors, and abattoirs. Using these records, we focus our programs to support profitable and sustainable dairy business. We have highly reliable data to help us make our bull selections. We pride ourselves on having high fertility and natural defence against disease, which is leading to one of the lowest usages of antibiotics across the dairy world. This has been built over more than 40 years of continuous recording and selection. We combine optimal production levels, health and fertility performance, and it makes our cows the ones you don't notice, the trouble-free cows year after year. Our three main breeding programs are Viking Holstein, Viking Jersey, and Viking Red. Breaking down the recorded purebred cow populations across the breeds, it looks like this, and as you'll see in most places around the world, the Holstein is the numerically dominant breed, although it's pretty close there in Finland between the Reds and the Holsteins. Let me just slide that across. From these populations and the data compiled, our programs genomically screen 3,000 Holsteins, 2,800 Reds, 375 Jerseys every year, leading to collection and sampling of 90 Holsteins, 70 Reds and 35 Jerseys annually. So it's a really significant program in its scale. And building on a little of what Mike said earlier too, it's critical to the dairy industry that we don't ignore the pressures consumers are increasingly applying to our businesses. Ultimately, they are our customers. The opinions around animal welfare and the environment expressed by urban dwellers must be interpreted into actions on farm that acknowledge these concerns, demonstrate a willingness to adapt and improve, and in so doing, secures the social license to continue doing what we do best, and that's feeding the world. So we must keep the consumer with us. We must be nimble and innovative in our approach. We need to include emissions, welfare, sustainability, and so on in our plans on farm. Viking remain at the forefront of sustainable dairying in the world and continue to bring more and more bulls that are polled, A2, highly efficient and so on for us to use. So consider how we can use data to innovatively pursue these goals. We've got records on a great many traits and how they can impact on cow fertility, as Mike alluded to earlier, one of the key challenges in our industry today. And as you know, Holstein cows are pregnant for 280 days, leaving just an 85-day window to fall pregnant. So how can we reduce pressure on the cow at this important time using that data and using innovative thinking? One of the ways is a really efficient use of available feed. CFIT is our patented system using infrared cameras to identify and monitor cows in commercial dairies. With this system that doesn't interfere with normal cow behaviour, we're able to collect records on many more cattle and in consecutive lactations, rather than data from experimental conditions. Viking is currently developing more feed efficiency data from dairy cattle in lactation than any group in the world. Further area of data, another option if you like, is lactation persistence, which describes the shape of the lactation curve and has an EBV in our Nordic evaluation, and it's featured in our catalogue. Here is a graph that shows the lactation curves from daughters of 3 different bulls. And these 3 bulls, their daughters all produce the same amount of milk, but the curve has a different shape. Some of them peak early, some of them peak late, and have a relative, the bull there, Evade, which I think is the middle curve, has a relatively flat lactation curve. If we can use data to manage the shape of the curve, we can move peak milk away from the joining window without overall production loss, making conception even more reliable. These are just some of the tools that we get from this large amount of highly accurate data that we can bring together through the evaluation in the Nordic countries. We have alternate EBVs that we can look at that give us another view and another way to manipulate our herd and select bulls to make change and to make advances. Now, I'd like to throw over to Eric to talk about some specific bulls that take advantage of these concepts, as well as highlighting some of their other features. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Jim. Well, with that in mind, that intro, I see the greatest gains in income into the future for dairy farmers, I think, are set to be through health and efficiency through genetics to a large degree. Whereas production, well, we can feed for production. You know, I've often thought you can have a cow that's doing 6,000 litres low input. The same cow will do 8,000 in higher input, and the same cow will do 12,000 litres if she's fed right to the hilt. But we can certainly do a lot through genetics to improve that health and stability of the cattle. So, without being, I guess, a little bit of a different presentation tonight, I've got some bulls here, 65 bulls to show you. No, I'm just kidding. Just a handful, but I want to focus on the health and efficiency benefits of each sire, rather than your usual udders, feet and legs and that sort of thing that we're also used to talking about. So with this first sire, now we're focusing on BPI. I mean, any of you that know me and know the history of Eric and Viking know that Eric loves his MTM index. And that's what you've got there, and I love it because there's so much in it. It's so thorough. There's so much data collected. But unfortunately, a lot of you out there don't really understand NTM, so we're trying to adapt a lot better for ease for you people to the BPI system. And with this first sire there, Ascari, he's the number 4 genomic sire in Australia at the moment. If you look at that little circle there, we've done that. That's based on the NTM. And I just want to demonstrate, we all get very hung up about type. And don't get me wrong, type's very important. We all want a good moderate-sized cow. We all want great udders. We all want good feet and legs. We all want a cow to be square. We want great capacity. Everybody wants those things. But at the end of the day, when you're looking at a bull proof, and it demonstrates it there, and you'll see on all the other sires, your production, of course, you've got to have production to make money. And number 2, and it's not that far behind the production, is the health. If you can incorporate a lot of health in your breeding, it's very profitable for you. And it'll be interesting to see, if you watch each circle, your actual conformation doesn't make up a lot of dollars in a bull's proof. So, you know, a cow's got to be able to milk, and they've got to be healthy. They've got to stay in your herd, and you decide when they go, not the cow itself. So we've got to get them to last, and we want to try and incorporate as much health as we can. This first bull here has a great survival. You can check this all out yourself. He's -7 for gestation length. We focus on that a little bit, so that great to use at the tail end of joining. So you can bring cows in, you know, they'll calve a week earlier to get them back in sync with the earlier calving cows. It's a great help there. Calving ease is very good, sexed for maiden heifers. And his lactation persistency, which Jim touched on before, is 107. And so he's above that average line for persisting throughout the lactation, and he's 1.5 deviations stronger for hoof health, which I will talk about a bit later on as well. The next bull, please. Barford. Now, this is an interesting bull. He's got a nice BPI, as you see there, of 462. And he's the highest BPI and health weighted sire of active bulls in Australia, above 150 feed saved index. So, you know, he's got a great, really good health profile. 3 deviations stronger for cow survival on the NTM. And what I like to see is, if you want more efficient cows, it's really funny in Australia how a lot of Holstein guys tell me, I want my cow smaller, but I'll just use a bull that's 102 or 3 for stature. Well, guess what? You're still making them bigger. Don't be scared to go backwards. This bull here, 91 for stature on the BPI, but importantly, chest 97 and body 90. Now, body depth. Now, that's all in sync with his stature. So if you've got a bull that's 111, say, for stature, and he's 100 for body depth, that's still tall and quite narrow. But when the stature's in sync with the chest and body, the scores are very close, you're getting a shorter, more efficient animal that's well balanced. It's as simple as that. So don't be scared of that. It's a good one to have a think about. So as I mentioned, lactation persistency, he's got that as well. And he's very good for calving ease as well. And he's 1 day less for gestation. The next bull. He's a fully polled bull, of course. A22, great milking speed, strong fore and rear udder attachments, a great survival. There again, a deviation stronger for lactation persistence. And he's not too tall, in a little bit on Australia, 103. He's actually 99 for stature on NTM. And I've been waiting for a decent polled bull, in my view. Again, I've found a lot of bulls tend to be very tall early on, very tall, very narrow. And I'm trying to get bulls that are that more moderate size and have a little bit more strength through the frame. And that's all starting to happen. Polls are going to play a big part of the future. There again, animal welfare and that sort of thing. So that's all going to happen. He's got a great production index here too, with 48 kilos for fat plus protein. So keep an eye out for heat PP. Next.
Eric, can I just clarify that you're sharing the screen okay? We've got a bit of feedback that people aren't been able to see the presentation, having been able to see earlier presentations. I don't know whether David can help out on this as well. Sorry, Eric.
Okay,
make sure
can't see the bulls.
Yeah, they're not seeing but we weren't getting that when Jim was speaking, which is interesting.
Yeah, and certainly I'm okay, but I'm monitoring the commentary. There are some people, for whatever reason, that aren't getting can't pick up the presentation.
Say they can. Okay.
Yeah, so it's a.
Well, I don't know what to do there.
Yep, we've got a couple.
I'm talking, but Jim's turning the pages there. So
I'm driving. There's a few that are saying they can see. I think we've got a few with some problems.
Yeah, look, we're getting more positive commentary than the negative. So perhaps we've got some glitches in the system, which we are trying to iron out. So apologies for those who can't. They're very pretty bulls, if that's the right way to express it. So I will just say that.
We'll keep going. We've got about 10 minutes, and, we are recording. We are recording, so people will be able to look at this later as well. For those that can't see at the moment. So back to you, Eric.
I don't really know whether I wanted you to call them very pretty bulls, but anyway, I'll take it. It's quite nice. This bull here, a great calving ease sire, nice BPI there again, 105 for calving ease, 0.8 of a deviation stronger for lactation persistency again, stronger for hoof health and daughter fertility, 111. So he's another strong BPI performer. We can go to the next one, A22, of course. And good old Sparky. Sparky's been used a lot in Australia. He's a proven bull. Interestingly, he's got dark hooves, which you don't see in a Holstein very often. And interestingly, he has, I claim him as the best, the strongest hoofed health Holstein in the world. And I can claim that because we gauge hoof health. So, but the interesting thing is when I break his index open, there's 7 traits in the hoof health index. And this bull, based on over 4,000 animals, so it's a big solid proof. He's 2.1 deviations stronger for sole hemorrhage, one of the biggest problems in Australia with feet. And he's almost 3 deviations stronger for white line separation, and you'd all be familiar with that. I'm not going to mention the other 5 traits because they're the 2 main ones for Australian farmers. So this bull is very well suited, and I do sort of like the fact he's got some set on his leg too in his proof, because there's a lot of Holstein bulls with straight leg, and my prediction is into the future that'll be the next issue. That'll be the new pins, legs getting too straight because there's so much of it out there. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong. Doesn't matter. Might create a bit of discussion, but it's very interesting. And he's an all-round favourite. So I really do like Sparky, and there's daughters coming into production now. So we're in Australia, so we're really hoping he's going to do the job. One more, Jim. Romello, there again, we've put this one right through the Australian system. Romello, it's got some really good points there again. This really is a strength sire. Lots of daughters down through the Gippsland area, Western Districts up north, right through Australia. I really like his figures. If you genuinely want a shorter stature but a strong animal, 93 for stature, 103 for chest. That's power. You know, when you get that chest higher than their stature score, you're really starting to put some power in your animals. And regardless of that, he's still 78 for feed saved. So he's a really, really good bull there. And he's a deviation stronger for hoof health. Okay, the next one. For Billy, a red bull. You can all have a good look at that guy. We do well with the red bulls in Australia. He's that efficient build, a little bit shorter, stature, chest, body, all in relation to his stature. Great save feed index again of 101. Strong proven daughter fertility, great for maiden heifers. Just a really nice red bull. The next, Fryer Up is the opposite. He is a powerful bull, not too tall, but very, very powerful through the chest and body. And there again, another good health sire and very good udder health. We don't just record cell counts in Scandinavia; they're recorded for actual mastitis treatments, so it's 100% accurate with the udder health. So that's a point worth mentioning. All things are recorded and go to the bull's proof. And last but not least on the dairy scene is a bull called Uvetus, a nice young sire. Just a nice outcross for all those red breeders. Excellent calving ease, sexed and conventional, medium framed animals to suit most situations. And interestingly, when you are crossing, or if Holstein breeders use the red bulls, a lot of people don't realise this, but if you get a bull like Old Foskey or this bull, if they've got the white hair going down to the hooves, out of Holsteins, they come out black and white. And a lot of people actually put them on the export market if they've got excess. But when you get the skin all around the foot going down to the hoof that's white, the calves will come out of Holsteins. Most of them will be just black and white and look like Holsteins. So there's an interesting point for you to think about. So with that, thank you very much. And I'll throw to Jim now. And he just wants to touch on a beef sire we've got. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Well done, mate. Look, we did want to just touch on something here with regards gestation length. There's another one of the tools that are being measured. We've introduced some semen from this fellow VB Nito. He's a Danish blue. So short gestation bulls extend that postpartum period, giving more recovery or rebreed time. And I think Mike even touched on that as well in his presentation. Late cows are often joined to beef bulls, and most of the beef breeds have got longer gestation length than the dairy breeds. So you do need to be selective in this space. Angus average is 283, Speckles 285, Limousins 281, Herefords 297. So there's quite a degree of variation in gestation length. So this makes those cows that you've bred to beef because they're late, they're getting later and later every year until I guess they become extinct. So our Danish blue bulls are consistently lower than 280 days. We've chosen to introduce bulls like Nitto, following on from considerable success in New Zealand, actually, and their short gestation provides a beef option that doesn't compromise and can even assist with tight calving patterns. Using data derived out of our dairy database, we can select these bulls for calving ease on dairy cattle, the gestation length, calf vitality, and fat cover. While the colour mark calves are high growth and high yield, the real premium comes from their contribution to reducing that stress on the cow in that rebreed period. And you also get paid your premium in extra days in milk, which is also something that Mike alluded to earlier. So that was our final slide there, Graham. And I wanted to extend our thanks to you, Graham, and to the Hico team for inviting us to be involved and to present tonight. I want to thank my co-presenter, Eric, for his good work. And we're happy to take questions. And if there's not enough questions, Eric will probably take a few requests.
All right. Look, to both Eric and Jim, thank you very much. It's given people another angle to think about tonight, and as we've already said, that's very much one of our objectives. We do have 8 minutes left, and so I'll throw to Jared to see whether there's any. I can see that there are some questions. So Jared, we do have time for 2 or 3 quick questions before we get into a quick wrap up. So over to you.
Yeah, there was a question from Noah earlier on, and I think it was when Jim was chatting. Jim, when you were given the sort of breakdown of the way that the system is organised up in Scandinavia, you mentioned 870,000 purebred recorded cows. Noah's question is, what about crossbreeds?
That's a good question. I just checked my microphone to see that I wasn't muted because I haven't got $1 on me. That's a really good question. We do record the crossbred cows, and we are very active in the crossbred space, in particular with three-way crossing, using all 3 of our breeds in what we call our golden cross. Now, the good news there is they're being recorded, but actually we're expecting next year that the evaluation, the NAV in Scandinavia, is going to be able to give us full NTM output and full data output on crossbred cattle as well as the purebred cattle. So we quote the purebred numbers typically because that's what we can compare with other areas. But having the output on the crossbred cattle will be really interesting as well. So good question. Thanks, Noah.
And Noah's on a roll because there's another one coming from him. How does CFIT feed efficiency program differ from other research around the world?
Again, CFIT is our feed efficiency monitoring program. The difference is that we're actually measuring the feed intake and the size and mass of the cows in commercial herds rather than experimental conditions. And the other key difference is that it's cows in lactation, not cows growing or young cattle. And it's lactation over subsequent lactations, first, second, and third lactations is where we'll generate that data. So the data will be both broad in the number of cattle that we can capture, but also quite deep in the fact that it's through multiple lactations.
And we've got a couple more minutes, so if people have questions, jump on the cartoon bubble and please do ask whether it's the 2 fantastic presentations from Jim and Eric, but also from Mike at LIC. So we've got some great talent on screen here. If you want to ask a question of them, it's a good opportunity to do so. And I think pretty much everybody who signed into the meeting is still with us. So we've had great people staying with it and engaging. I want to ask a question though, again, Jim, you mentioned about the database that is existing in Scandinavia. You know, everyone from hoof trimmers to farmers and veterinarians. Is that a part of it? I'm just curious. Is that a licensing thing that somebody to be a hoof trimmer you have to get your license? You have to commit to using this database. How is that so well adhered to, I suppose?
Eric, you can probably offer more there, but it suffices to say that there are much greater controls in the Scandinavian countries as to what you can and can't do around cattle. And so, yeah, people are far more controlled in their access to the cattle, and what they do has to be recorded so that any impacts can be monitored.
Okay. Eric, anything to add there?
Oh, and I think they just like to, all the different arms work very well together in Scandinavia. Where in Australia, we tend to be little bits of island. The nutritionist operates by himself, and the guy that's growing the grass, and where over there, everyone seems to work hand in hand. Well, if I do this with grass, how's that going to affect fertility with the breeding guys? So the hoof trimmer, simply, it's another thing that happens to the animals. It's another cost. And, you know, these guys go around, they trim the hoofs. It all goes into the system, into a central database. It's just another management tool. It's just another tool in the management box that farmers are very happy to have. You know, it's an act, it's a cost, so they add it and it's recorded for the benefit of the farmer.
Maybe we can get Viking or the Scandinavians to manage our vaccine rollout next year, or whenever we need it next year. One final question, and I'll open this also. Mike, we did touch on it when I asked you a question about sex semen earlier on, but just to bring you back in before the end of the meeting. Firstly, to the Viking guys, how do you make decisions around sexed semen and which genetics you want to take forward without individual cow data?
I'm not sure I exactly understand the question. Are we making decisions about whether we use sexed semen? Is that what we're referring to?
Yeah. So I'll just run the question through again. Sometimes reading off a screen can be a bit awkward, but how would you make decisions around sexed semen and which genetics you want to take forward without having individual cow data? So maybe that goes back to perhaps something around the herd testing. I'm not a dairy farmer, so I'll let you dance through that one.
I think that, you know, this is a good point, and you bring that herd testing element into it. What we measure, we can manage, and if we're not measuring anything to do with the cows, it is very hard to accurately apply genetics for best effect. But that's where farmers have to look at averages and make their best assessments and their best judgments. A lot of times when people are looking at sexed semen, it's not necessarily the best cow. It will be, I think Mike said this earlier too, it will probably be perhaps the early cows. The early cows should be your more fertile cows. That's one of our biggest challenges. So that probably makes sense. That's one place I would commence. Eric, anything further? Mike, anything?
Oh, just look, I remember a farmer said to me, Ron Graham, Boland's years and years ago, that he said, Eric, I've got the top end of the herd and the tail end of the herd. I'm going to use the very best bulls, and I'm going to use them on the greatest cow and the worst cow, so that I can bring the tail up to meet the head. And in 3 generations, that poor cow family that normally I'd throw a bull on, she's just a bit of a dog of a cow, I'll just give her a PT bull. He said, I don't do that. I put the very best bull on it and bring it up. And I think, you know, sure, a farmer can't, if he's not herd testing, he can't really judge if it's a perfect mating for a cow. But I guess from our point of view, we select the very highest rated bulls we can. You know, we ensure that semen fertility is of a high standard. And I guess they can't lose. If we're giving the farmer the best we can offer them, without them being able to really selectively breed their cows because they don't herd test, we're still giving them the best opportunity to go forward. I hope that makes sense.
We do also have, with our mating program, VicMate, we are able to rank cows on best pedigree estimates. So the mating program will construct an estimate of the cow's merit based on the pedigree inputs we can put in. So that's certainly one way that we can rank cows, outside of actually having herd test data.
Okay. Anything to add, Mike,
Just
before I hand you back to Graham?
Yeah, just on that. I mean, I suppose we're genetics companies and we love high genetic merit animals and improving genetics going forward. But practically on farm, I think farmers see this expensive straw of semen often, and I'm thinking, what are the first priority from a farmer's perspective is I want to have a cow getting in calf to that expensive straw. So they're probably going to try to line up and target those cows with the highest chance of getting in calf, which are generally going to be those early calvers, ones that have cycled, had a couple of practice heats, been healthy. The other area I think that is really a good area to focus, and the farmers can make that work, is yearling matings. I think sex semen dovetails into yearling matings really nicely, because yearlings are a bit of an issue with a lot of farms because they generate a lot more bobby calves. They generate a lot of bobby calves from there because it's because they're using Jersey bulls. So if you can probably get around 40% of your replacements off one round of sex semen off yearlings if you can get a reasonable result. So you've solved a lot of your replacement animals off your what generally is your highest genetic merit group of animals, and then they would have normally been bobby calves. Then you can focus your cows on more beef animals, which can handle those beef bulls better than what yearlings can. So I think yearlings are a really good focus for sex. And because they're 90% heifers, the calving issues aren't as great. So I think there's a really good case for yearling matings with sex semen if people can make that work.
Yep, concur with that.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for giving your time and expertise so freely tonight. And also, just a big shout out to all of you, because the way we originally set these up was that we'd only have one company on air at once. And while it is a very competitive industry, and so it should be, I'd just like to recognise the maturity of both Jim and Eric and Mike in allowing each other to have a bit of time, because I think it is a good reflection on the industry. It's a very knowledgeable industry, and it needs to be, given the challenges that we all face in the future. So that's we're pretty much into a quick wrap up, because I know some people want to get to the front bar, which is probably more the AFL program on Channel 7. But as a quick wrap up, there's our 1800 number that we can that we're happy to talk to people about tomorrow. As said previously, we will also have a recording. We'll be editing in the morning and putting a recording of this up on a couple of social media sites, and we will be emailing that out to people tomorrow as far as the link is concerned. Also, just in closing, to remind you that we have additional sessions next week. 7:30 on both Tuesday and Thursday. Next Tuesday we'll have another 2 bull companies, and then next Thursday we'll have something completely different. So stay tuned. Tomorrow you'll find out more about it. And in closing, thank you everybody. I hope you've gained something out of tonight, and we look forward to seeing you same time, same place next Tuesday night. So thanks again, and as said, thank you very much to all of our presenters.